In this video, we're going to talk about 10 things that you can do to improve the quality of your outdoor education in 2019. So stick around. Hey folks, welcome back. It's a brand new year, and as such, we have a whole brand new program that we're going to go through here. And it's going to start with how to get outside and maximize the impact that you have on your outdoor education, your personal education, be it bushcraft, survival, or nature connection, whatever you're into, whatever your thing is. I want to help you get better at doing that. Tip number one, get a journal. Why a journal? We all have smartphones. We can take pictures, record notes, and all those sort of things. But if you think about the time it takes to snap a picture of a particular flower on your smartphone and then store it away in the memory, as opposed to the amount of time and detail that you have to focus on in order to write out all the details and log it down in a journal, drawing pictures. You have to know what the stamen looks like. You have to count the petals, the petal layout, the color variations, the stem, the leaves. You have to get real detailed with something so minute as a flower, as opposed to just taking a picture, looking it up on Google. Now you think you know it, and that's it. But if you journal it, you get it in a whole different light. You get more intimate with that item, be it an animal track or a rub or a scrape or some sign. I'm not saying don't take pictures. Pictures are great, but always have a journal when you go into the outdoors to record these sorts of things on. And you'll see as we move down this list of 10 things that the journal is a very important part of that. Do you have a journal now? Do you keep a journal? Do you take a journal to the field with you? Or do you just journal on your smartphone? And how does that work out for you? Let me know down in the comments. Tip number 2, go outside often. You can't go out and learn about the outdoors if you're not out in it. It's great. I mean, the resources on the internet are fantastic. It's wonderful to jump on YouTube and see what other people are doing and to Google and look up information and techniques and tools, but there's absolutely no replacement for being outside. And I'll give you some examples of that. I love nature. I love being out in it in all its forms and fashions. And as such, in the last couple of years, I've volunteered at a local wilderness school for teenagers and kids, just getting kids outside. And in doing that, I get to spend a week and a half in the forest with kids. And the beauty of being out there with kids, children, and teens is that they're so inquisitive, and they're always looking at things as if they've seen it for the first time, because many of them, they have seen it for the first time, and they're just so excited about the whole thing, and it really kind of invigorates you to go out and be that same way, that level of excitement. So this last summer I volunteered for them, and that's about the time, about 4 months ago, where I dropped off on my videos, was when I volunteered to go up there. So after that time period, I entered into my hunting season and spent a fair amount of time in the woods hunting, and then I went in for foot surgery. The surgery has kind of knocked me down. I haven't actually been out in the woods through the whole month of December and now into January, and then when my foot heals, I have to go in for another surgery, and that's going to take me out of the woods up until April. But in that time, I didn't want to lose my connection to the land and the nature, so I had to come up with a program that worked for me so that I can stay connected while I'm not really allowed to be out moving around the mountains. As you can see right here, I'm in my own backyard. My house is right there. This isn't what I would consider going out to the mountains and going out and getting survival education, but it's a start, and it's the same start that you can make. So get outside. The only thing you have to do to get outside is open the door and walk through it, and you are outside. Tip number 3, slow down and move at the speed of nature. When you head outside, whether it's at a picnic table outside of your workplace or in a public park or actually out into nature, the goal is to slow down and just kind of move at the same speed as your environment, which is relatively slow. You know, day to day we're going to work and we're coming from work and we're going to the store and we're dealing with kids and we're dealing with teachers at school and we're dealing with all these different things, and they're all moving real quick, and you have to think on your feet and move quick. There's a time when you just have to calm down and slow down. And one of the things I do with my kids is when they come home from school, they do a sit-out. It's just 20 minutes, and they have their own spots out here on the land somewhere. And we'll take 20 minutes and we'll gather around the house, and we'll all stand in a circle, and we'll each tell a little bit about our day. That right there starts to calm them down, because they're so excited about all the things that happened at school or with their friends or or what's going on, or this new competition that's coming up that they're getting into, or their sports activity. There's just so many things going on in their lives also. So once they slow down a little bit, they have to quiet their mind and quiet their mouth and let everybody speak, and everybody tells about their day. So you get all those good high points out of the way, and then they march on off to their sit spot, nice and quiet, and they just sit there. And they sit there for 20 minutes, and we don't have cell phones, and we don't have watches, and we don't have anything. They just sit there, and they wait for my call to come back in. So they sit there and they observe, and they watch the trees, and they watch the plants, and they're getting really good at just finding the time to calm themselves down and just kind of be present in the space where they're at right now, and leave all that hustle and bustle behind. So find the time to slow down and calm down. So my wife was sitting out there once, and she heard this crunchy sound, crunch, 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 crunch. And she was like, what is that? So she just started to investigate what was going on around her. And as it turned out, there was a paper wasp, and it was on a branch, or on an old rotten log, and it was crunching, eating the wood, and it was moving backwards as it was doing it. And when it was done, it'd go back to the beginning, and it'd crunch again, and it'd start chewing on this wood and moving backwards the whole time. Which I thought was interesting. You know, I didn't know, I mean, I knew obviously they gathered wood and whatnot, but I didn't know the exact process. And she thought that was amazing, just to hear that crunching sound. Something so small and insignificant as a paper wasp gathering material to build his nest. And she got to observe that and learn a little bit about how he does it and how he gathers it, you know, the actual mechanics of gathering the paper. And that was real interesting. So you can't get to the level where nature can teach you anything if you won't slow down and let it happen. So you have to be able to calm your mind down. And there's other, you know, there's meditation techniques you can use. You can sit and you can count and you can do all these things. I've found the best thing to still my mind when I go out into nature is to just pick something and focus on it. I'll pick a flower or a branch or a leaf or an animal being like a bug or a spider or something, and I'll just focus intently on that thing, and I'll just let it show me what it wants to show me. And if that's nothing, then it's nothing. But at the same time, when I'm focusing on a leaf, I'm not thinking about, you know, my YouTube watch and the emails that I have coming in and all these little things on my to-do list. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is that little leaf or that little stick that I'm watching and what it has to tell me. And it's really interesting sometimes that you might just look down and look at something as insignificant as a leaf, and then the leaf shimmies a little bit, and then a bug comes crawling out from underneath it and looks around a little bit, and maybe it grabs something and goes back underneath. That's a really cool discovery when you get to look at the world through the eyes of a child. So take the time to slow down and move at the speed of nature. That's tip number 3. Tip number 4, set training goals. We all have standards that we want to meet, and we all have goals that we want to meet, but set your goals, or set your training goals. Say you want to spend a minimum of 2 hours a week out in nature. Log that time in your journal and set that goal that I want to spend 2 hours a week out in nature. Maybe you want to double that. Maybe you want to spend 2 days a week out in nature. Whatever it is, set a goal and then put that on your priority list. Put that on your schedule. Put that on your calendar. Make time to go out and just be present in nature. You don't have to do anything. See, we all watch these channels and we think, oh, I'm going out to the forest, I have to bring my backpack, and I have to make fire, and I have to build a camp, and I have to do all these things. But in reality, all you have to do is go out and just kind of sit amongst the trees and the grass and just take in that energy, that wild energy, and there'll be things to do. That's one of the things I learned with the kids is when you get them out in nature, they seem to find a way to entertain themselves. The first day of camp, they're all kind of mopey, and they're all kind of, you know, they don't want to play the games, and they don't really want to go running off to the woods. And about day 3, you can't find one that's still wearing shoes. They're running all over the place. They're gathering sticks. They're making play knives, and they're doing all these crazy things, all these inventive things, and they're making toys, and they're finding ways to entertain themselves, and they're asking questions, and they're coming to the instructors and the mentors, and they're like, hey, I found this in the woods. What is this? Oh, that's a mouse skull. Why do you think it was under that tree? Oh, I don't know why it was under the tree. I don't know why there'd be a mouse there. Well, were there any owl pellets around? Is there maybe an owl nest up in that tree? Go back and take a look. See, you really get them inquisitive, and you get them thinking about it and going out and doing it. And I kind of got off topic, but the whole point is that you have to schedule time to go out and be creative and be inquisitive and learn from nature, or it's always going to get put on the back burner. You have to make it a priority. Make nature exploration your priority. Put it on your schedule. Put it in your phone. Schedule time every day or every week where you're going to go out in nature, even if it's just outside in the back of the house like this, just to go be amongst the trees. So do you have any training goals for this year? What are they? You know, what is your time schedule? How much time do you want to spend out in nature? Or what are some key things that you want to learn this year? Do you want to make your first hand drill or your first bow drill? Do you want to spend your first night out alone in the woods? Lots of different things, and there's different ways to get to those goals. So, hey, if that's you, why not put it in the comments and share it with everybody? Tip number 5, catalog nature as often as you can. And that is, learn what's there and learn its name. And if you can't learn the name or you don't know the name, give it a name. Eventually, you will wonder what that tree named Bob, what is Bob? Why is Bob growing here? What are the medicinal and what are the values that Bob can provide to me if I'm out in nature? If you don't have a name for it, draw it, catalog it, write down as much information as you can, and eventually figure out what it is. We as humans name everything. Our language is such that there's nothing that can't be described with our language. So in doing that, we name everything. You know, I can sit in my living room and I can look around and I know that that's a TV and that's a guitar and, you know, and that's a drum and that's an axe and that's a dishwasher and that's the sink. Everything has a name and a place. But when you walk out in the woods, it's just trees and bushes. But the better you know those trees and bushes, you know how to use them and you understand them and you understand when they lose their leaves and when they sprout their new buds and what this pine cone goes to that tree and this pine cone goes to that tree. The more familiar you are with them, the more likely you'll go out to them. You know, conversely, if you were to take a wild animal and throw it in my house, he would probably run around my house, wreck everything, trying to get back outside. And that's sort of what humans do if you threw them in the woods. They'll go through the woods and wreck everything trying to get back to the indoors. But if you can create a way to be as comfortable there as here, indoors as outdoors, they're both like coming home. There are times when you want to stay in your house and be comfortable and turn up the fire and watch TV, and there are times when you want to turn that off and you want to come back outside and connect with nature. They both have a value. I'm not saying go move off to the woods and be a hermit in some homemade log cabin, but they both have a value, and you have to learn how to balance it and get what you can from each of those, but keep them in balance. And by naming and cataloging the things around you, that breeds a certain level of comfort that allows you to go into there. And if your goal is eventually to spend a night or 2 or 4 or a week alone in the woods, it's a lot easier to have the motivation to do that without the fear if you know the environment, you know the plants, and you know what animals are in the area. And if you're in doubt, use an area where you go to often. Even just an area in your backyard, just a little bit separated from any buildings, or a real close area in a local park or a local state park. And go to these places and learn them well in the daytime so that you can recognize them at night. And if you still have doubts, put out a game camera. It'll be interesting. You know, you're going to spend hundreds of dollars on gear eventually over the course of your outdoor career anyway. Why don't you spend a little money up front and buy a game camera and put it in? And if you plan on camping in this spot, then leave a camera up, you know, monitor it over the course of a couple of weeks or a couple of months and learn what animals are there and what time do they come through. Then in the middle of the night, when you're out there for your first solo overnighter and you hear that crushing around in the bushes, you can look at your watch and say, oh no, it's 10 o'clock, it's that doe that comes through here every day. And then the fear is gone. You are now comfortable in that environment, you know what's going on, and that lesson will transcend to other areas, because now that you know the sound of a lone deer walking through the woods at night, you no longer think that it's a bear or a cougar. What do I do now? Now I'm out here, I don't have any equipment. You know, what do? I just sit here and stare at the dirt. So what you do is you make a list in your journal from A to Z and go through and just find one natural item for each of those letters. You know, just go through and make this list. You know, use Google, use dictionary.com, find a list of something natural that you can throw in for each one of these letters. And you get a little tricky when you get to Q and Z and X, you know, just discard them, who cares? And the idea is that you get this big long list of these natural things that are pretty common, and when you go out, find them. It's more like a scavenger hunt. You can just sit down and you can be like, oh, I'm supposed to find some bark, so here's some bark. What's special about this? And you can draw a picture of it and you journal it and you put it in there. And once that's done, scratch that off and maybe find another bee to replace it. And just keep going through like that and just adding all these different items and letters to your journal. At least it gives you a roadmap. It gives you something to discover. Now this isn't the cool and sexy canvas and leather of survival and bushcraft like you normally see. You know, that's what all over Instagram. It's all canvas and leather and brass and steel and knives and cool tools and cool packs and cool gear. This is like the rivets and the stitching and all the other crap that holds all that really neat stuff together. So once you have some sort of an outdoor foundation in nature, then you can take that and you can explore further. You can do the same thing with that letter system with trees. You can list all these trees, just find random trees that are in your area, look at a field guide and find all these trees in your area and go try and catalog them. Go try and figure out where they're at. Tip number 6, question everything. Why does the birch grow up to this level and then stop? Or why do I have to go up on this hill and over here in order to find a birch tree when it's still got pines growing in it that I can find at the lower levels? And you know, why? Mentor yourself into going out learning by asking a few questions and then going out and answering them. It's just an excuse to step outside. And you can narrow that scope down to just what's in your yard. If you're in the city and you have a very small yard, narrow that scope down to things, bugs and grasses and weeds and trees and stuff that you have in your little 4 foot by 4 foot patch of yard or whatever. And then when you're going out to a park, maybe that's an opportunity to explore farther and let your inner Indiana Jones out and you get to do a little bit of research as to what's in that area and make a list of things that you want to accomplish while you're there and things you want to see. And then when you get out there, start exploring, start being a little kid, start playing in the woods. Tip number 7. Experiment. You know, I was out in the woods and I had some food and I was eating my food and I saw some ants and they were kind of marching to and fro and doing their own little thing, and I thought, well, I'm gonna put a little piece of bread next to them. And so I basically conducted an experiment. I wanted to see what they would do. Obviously that's a foreign food source to them. I imagine they don't get too much bread out in the middle of the woods where they're at, but I wanted to see how they investigated what was new to their environment. And I assumed, because I know what bread tastes like, I assumed that I would put it down and an ant would find it and the rest would swarm it. But the truth is I put it down and it was actually investigated by multiple ants slowly over time before a few ants came and picked it apart and carried it off. And it didn't happen as rapidly as I expected it to. I expected one ant would find it, pick it up and carry it away, and that would be the end of it. Or they would swarm on it, tear it apart, and it would disappear. But it took a while. It took a long time, and the truth is there was plenty of time there for an actual bird to come down and take it. They didn't because I was too close to it, but the whole point is I conducted a little experiment. I made a hypothesis. I guessed what I thought might happen, and I was wrong. And nature did what nature does, and I learned from that. I learned how nature investigates what we put in front of it, or things that are foreign to it, in a safe and natural way, and we should probably take that as a lesson on how we go out into an environment that's foreign to us and how we investigate it. So experiment, experiment, experiment. Tip number 8, get out of your comfort zone.
Watch out for the line. Oh, yeah, I turned into a big fish, guys.
I don't want to know more
Let go.
You know, at the beginning, we talked about being comfortable in your house and creating a comfortable environment outdoors. Once that environment is comfortable to you, push it. Push it out farther, go a little farther, explore a little more, stay a little longer, get a little bit outside your comfort zone. Growth doesn't happen in a comfort zone. You have to create an environment that you can retreat to, that you can be comfortable in, but growth does not happen in any kind of a comfort zone. You can look at all the special operations schools in the world. All those schools are designed to do is to take an individual that's already tougher than nails and rip them out of their comfort zone and throw them in another environment and make them function based on what they already know or what they have recently learned. So the whole idea is to just get out of your comfort zone and keep pushing that comfort zone far and far beyond where you ever thought it would be. So that could be one of your goals this year, is to really extend your comfort zone well beyond what it is now. People have done it. People have pushed their comfort zone so far that they can achieve things that are far beyond what people before them have achieved. And they didn't do that by staying in a comfortable area and deciding to go be great. They became great by slowly pushing the boundaries and pushing those comfort zones. So make that a goal this year. Push your boundaries, push your comfort zones. Tip number 9, teach what you know. Whether that be to your kids, to your wife, to your husband, to a friend, volunteer at a local school. You know, most of the local schools and camps that take people to the woods will be more than happy to take volunteers, especially if you show an interest and some sort of an aptitude for the outdoors. If you don't, fine, explain to them, I don't have a great aptitude, I'm just now learning this, but I'm good at watching kids, so I would like to help you while learning alongside them in the process. I will caution that if you ever volunteer for an outdoor school, especially one that caters to kids, and they don't require a background check, run from that school, go to a different one. There's a whole lot of scoundrels and dirty things going on out there, and if a school doesn't, if one of the first things they don't ask you to do is fill out a background check, and don't offer it. Don't be like, hey, you know, I'd like to come work for you, I'll do a background check, you know, don't offer that. Just wait for them to ask, because if they don't ask, then they don't ask everybody, which means they get people in there that have not been checked out, and that is a recipe for disaster, and you don't want your name or anything else associated with it. They must ask you for the information, and they must conduct the background check. So that's a big caution. If you're dealing with any kind of a school and it's dealing with children, make sure that they do background checks on everybody all the time, 100% without fail. That's one way to like protect you personally, your name and your reputation. You don't want to get caught up in any of their garbage if they have some weird scandals going on or anything else. I hate to be pessimistic like that, but unfortunately that's the world we live in. So, but it is a really good way to get some outdoor time. You know, I get a good week and a half, up to 3-4 weeks in the field every year just by volunteering to help other people go out and train and do their various things. I don't run a school, I don't run any kind of training program, but I love to volunteer and help other people achieve those goals, especially when it comes to educating our youth so that all of this isn't lost. So don't be afraid to learn and share what you know. Tip number 10, forget everything you think you know when you're in a learning environment. And I know that that's very counterintuitive, but don't go into an environment where somebody is going to teach you and then try to back teach them. You know, if they're trying to tell you, hey, this is how you make a bow. Oh yeah, I've done this 100 times. Let me show you how I do it. Don't even go there. Go in there with the mindset that you've never done it before and you're going to learn something new. I've made hundreds of bow drill fires and hundreds of hand drill fires, and I'm telling you, I still learn stuff. I still learn stuff today. I learned from children just last summer. There's just so many things to learn that not one person can possibly hold it all. But if you go in there with an empty vessel, you have more room to hold information than if you go there with one that's already overflowed and you're not willing to take more information in. So always be humble. And if learning is involved, forget everything you know and be willing to learn. So with that, if you think you could benefit from that tip, go ahead and drop it down in the comments. Say yes or no. And I know I ran a little long there, so I'm going to summarize it all really quick. Tip number 1. Get a journal. Number 2, go outside often. Number 3, slow down and move at the speed of nature. Number 4, set training goals. Number 5, catalog nature. Number 6, question everything. Number 7, experiment. Number 8, get out of your comfort zone. Number 9, teach everything you know. And number 10, forget everything you know. I hope that you enjoyed this. I'm glad that you decided to stop by. I plan to do more videos like this along the mindset and lists through the course of this year. And I hope that you'll stick around to see it. And you can do that and you can stay informed by subscribing to this channel, watching some of our other videos. By all means, share, lean into the comments and communicate with me and communicate with the rest of the community. And look us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where we do various other little doodads, thises and that's. And I intend to do a few really cool giveaways this year and some more gear reviews and whatnot. But the primary focus of this year is going to be on training yourself in wilderness education from start to finish, and nature connection and moving through the environment without doing it in an extreme amount of damage. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one.